I think this is your first podcast.
This is my first podcast. Yeah, it's good to look back on the year. We've just seen the video, and I mean, we're more comfortable, I think, on videos these days than behind just sole microphones. So there's a danger of going to waffle when you've got a video camera in front of yourself. You tend to, well, I don't know if I speak for myself, whether you think this as well, but you kind of become composed and you really think about what you're saying. With a microphone on its own, then just you two there with cups of tea or whatever. Tend to waffle.
Become somewhat composed after the 15th take, but we do get there in the end.
We do get there. But Chris did a great end of year video, I think you'll agree.
Oh, definitely, yeah. We've got you washing the windows and all the highlights.
All in 59 seconds. Yeah. It's amazing. A year in 59 seconds.
But I think that this is probably one of the things that people don't realise about us here more than anything, is there is always somebody out on the move somewhere at some part of the world. We're only a small team of 6 or 7 sort of people really, but we get everywhere. And, well, mainly that's you, Richard, isn't it?
I think Chris is challenging me a little bit more this year.
So, where have you gone to this year that kind of surprised you?
Now, where do we begin? I'm not being surprised. I don't know about you, Sam, it's deja vu. This time last year, as we ended the year, we were just trying to go to press, if you remember rightly, and another company would buy someone, or there'd be an acquisition or a major announcement. We thought, that won't happen again this year, and lo and behold, what happens?
It has. But saying that, it's definitely been a quieter year for acquisitions this year than last year. There have been a few standout names, but last year it was non-stop. It seemed like every 2 or 3 weeks there was another major announcement. I don't feel like there have been too many this year until we've got to this end. So whether everybody's saving the announcements to sneak them in before Christmas, or I'm not sure what the reasoning is.
It's usually the way though. I mean, last year you could kind of bookend the start of this year with the end. So the very end of 2018 we had RCF acquiring DPA microphones. This year we've got RCF acquiring Montalvo. Seems like every December, same week, they have to make the same announcement. So who are they going to buy this time next year?
I think I'm quite close to Arturo, and when he left the RCF group and grew AEB Technologies and built the DB Technologies brand, I think he had one eye on RCF when he was with Mackie, and he was pleased to get back into the hot seat late 2003 and take it forward. He's rebuilt the team. He got the whole team back on board almost, and they've done amazing things. So for all these years it's been DB Technologies and RCF, and then suddenly in the last 2 years he correctly identified DPAs as his EAW. Now I know Montalvo was a personal thing for him, I think, because they're a huge Italian brand. He used to work very close to Mr. Montanari in Bologna, and they used to have chat, and they liked each other's hard work ethic. And the Montalvo brand is synonymous with MI. They've got huge Middle Eastern roots, and with it coming upon the market, I'm not sure what EK Music did with it really. It's been fairly stagnant. It's going to be fascinating to see what RCF do with it, how they position it, because remember they've got EAW, they've got DB Technologies in the same portfolio. They need to differentiate, you would think.
Yeah, and saying that, there hasn't been that much noise about EAW since it was taken over really. I mean, I presume there were grand plans for the brand and how they want to move it forward, but they've yet to tell everybody what those are. So that will be interesting.
Well, I saw the new powered speakers and some lower cost line arrays, but it's going to be interesting to see how, if at all, they spread them out. I mean, let's go. I mean, we're talking about several loudspeaker brands in one package there. Let's look at that console brand, or should I say company, Audio Tonics, which is glued together by Clang Technologies really in the middle now.
From Italian loudspeakers to British consoles. They each have their own kind of identity, don't they, in that sense? And
is there safety in numbers, do you think?
Well, I was initially a bit sceptical about Audio Tonics, what it would mean for these kind of big 3 heritage brands, and we spoke at length to James Gordon at the time, who was resolute that it wouldn't change the general, the identity, the makeup. They'd just be smart about the way they do things, and I dare say they've been quite smart so far.
Well, we sneaked to look at the figures, didn't we, Simon? Because yesterday there was an announcement yesterday, and D&B's venture capitalist Ardian They're the new paymasters for audio tonics. I don't know if I've termed that correctly in financial speak. I hope I don't get a lawyer's letter as a result of it. But it's been an amazing journey for them. It looks like the numbers keep growing.
It seemed like, and obviously we have no way of knowing how accurate these numbers were to begin with, or whether they're only estimations, but maybe the group in revenue has almost tripled in the last few years, which would be absolutely insane when you think of it like that, isn't it? And these are brands who've been in the market for decades.
Yeah.
They're not new entities.
Well,
they're
Alan
already
Heath turned 50 this year, that's right.
Yeah. SSL's probably even older, I would imagine.
Less so, I think.
Oh, really?
Showing my age there, though.
But I mean, how's the trend of acquisitions, do you think, kept pace in 2019 compared to, say, 2018, when it seemed like everyone was buying everyone?
I think Simon's right. There has been a bit of consolidation, but most of them don't get flagged up. So when Ross Video or Crestron buys somebody, it's usually someone of 20, 30 people, and it hardly makes back page news. But they're all buying components, and it's easier to make an acquisition of a small company and embed it into your philosophy rather than buy a big company, which is harder to manoeuvre. You look for missing parts, you're looking for missing technologies that make you a rounded portfolio that gives you a solution. And as you know, it's not about shifting products. It hasn't been for a long time now. It's about creating a solution. Ross know how to do that. Crestron know how to do that. And my fear is I looked at the Crestron booth, and the Infocom this year, Sam, and it was just ginormous. You got lost in there. I don't know how much it will cost a square metre.
And I think that's the challenge for some of these things, some of these companies. As long as they stick with the mantra of they're trying to provide a solution, the other bits tend to fall into place. If they're looking at it from the perspective of what's interesting and available on the market, then you probably end up with these very convoluted catalogues that have more and more products joining them without any clear place. And there definitely are companies in our industry that have suffered from that problem.
Rather than Crestron getting into an educational campus and just having a touchscreen on a few walls, they can go to the education authority and say, we can do the whole damn lot. And they can do all the audio, all the video, all the channeling, the AV over IP, and as a solution, and link it with a control. And control is central to really controlling all the bits around them. And it's the same with DSP. You see it with QSC. They bought a Tyrotech this year as a missing component, and you've seen it with Biamp now.
Of course, we forgot about QSC earlier in the year. Tyrotech was another big acquisition.
Yeah. Just goes to show, doesn't it, how much gets done in a year. I mean, obviously you mentioned Biamp just then at the beginning of the year, or was it late last year, they bought Cambridge Sound Management.
Correct, yeah.
And then in the summer, Apart Audio and Community Loudspeakers. So what do we think of those kind of acquisitions? I mean, Biamp have really, I guess, entered the pro audio space more traditionally, and can offer those solutions as well.
Well, it's startling. Luckily I had a chat with Rashid Scaff, the president of Biamp recently, and it's quite transparent. They've acquired these brands to get them out of their traditional Biamp markets. Biamp with Verchier, with Tessera, and their other DSP components were, I wouldn't say limited in where they could go, but now they've got the loudspeaker solutions, which let's think community. I mean, Speedway, stadiums, all weather, Apart, those lovely little 4-inch ceiling speaker masks that go in all the shopping malls, retail, residential. They can do the whole lot now. And Cambridge Sound with the sound masking. It'd be interesting, like you say, though, to see what else they may acquire as a missing piece of the jigsaw.
Well, I mean, what's really missing from the signal chain there?
You could say microphones, we can get those OEM. There's no need, really, is there? I mean, what they're doing now, as well as the acquisition of those 3 brands like you identified, James, is changing the distribution channels as well. And the way they're marketing, it's not they're Biamp speakers now, they're not Community and Power. I found that quite extraordinary.
Yeah, and that was a big surprise for me, because I think when you look at those other companies that have tried to grow their range of solutions and what they can offer, like prime example, Harman Professional, to the extreme scale, they've been successful because they've retained that core identity that each individual brand has had, including, well, for a long time, the original distribution networks and stuff, until they had that big shift up a couple of years ago. Yeah. And so it could potentially be dangerous for Biamp to mess with that strategy before they've been able to grow those brands within themselves in a more effective way.
Who takes the risk assessment in Beaverton before they make a decision like that?
And let's say, I mean, and a traditional apart audio distributor quite a different type of company from your traditional kind of biamp distributor. So for them to take on the whole lot, something's got to sacrifice somewhere.
Oh, it's seismic, yeah, you're right. I mean, the earth will move and there'll be some buildings falling down there for sure. Hopefully they'll have something put together at the end of it which they can demonstrate as a solution-based company, which will gets them out of their traditional shopping malls and boardrooms and into stadiums and everywhere else in between with a complete package.
And there's no surefire approach to any of these things, are there? If there were, all companies would take the same route through the market and all do the same thing. So people like Rashid, it's up to their vision to drive these things through the way that they best see fit.
Great. So obviously you mentioned obviously the distribution sort of shake up as well with Apart and Community in particular, following the biamp acquisitions. I mean, in terms of distribution this year, it feels like maybe in some regions things maybe settled down a bit, perhaps.
I don't think it's ever settled, is it? I mean, Simon knows in Dubai, and I know from Singapore and Southeast Asia like Hong Kong, those hubs now have all the major brands in them. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it wasn't the case, but you think about 15 years ago, I think Extron were the first to start in Dubai, followed by Bosch and Sennheiser and more recently Shaw. They've all got a head office there.
Yeah, and I'm definitely starting to see that more and more in Dubai. The need to have a physical local presence that goes beyond just a distributor. Something that can help with service and support in general, or sometimes just the whole sales procedure.
Yeah.
To that end, I think we're kind of seeing quite a few manufacturers setting up their own subsidiaries as well, aren't we, in different markets as well. I mean, does that take away from the distributor's role?
I think so, yeah. Whether they think they can cut out margin on one hand or get better sales by working directly with the factory. I think margins are being squeezed. Well, they are being squeezed, aren't they? It's not just MI products that are going below 10% and box shifted on. Everything's a commodity now, and that's why solution-based companies now. Because if you're selling a solution, you can get much better margin. If you're just selling a box, it's just going to get whittled down to fractions of what it originally went out the door for. That cuts out distribution channels and partners. So I think that's the way it's been directly sold.
And from a pure box shifting type mentality, there aren't many products that you can't get hold of in any territories of the world, whether that's by legitimate means or not. So that's the value that gets added these days. It's the entire package from beginning to end, and knowing that somebody's got your back basically to guide you through some of these projects and is there to help when things go wrong. That's the premium that you pay for. And
do you think the establishment of these local offices from the manufacturers, I mean, does that result in a better experience for the end user in the regions, or I mean, is it more or less the same as what the distributor was providing before?
I think it's much better these days. I have to say that, James, because they offer much better educational facilities now, seminars. We've all got social media, we're in constant contact all the time with these companies and those subsidiaries, and whenever they have a training program or a demo or a workshop, everyone knows about it straight away. They can RSVP, they can catch up with their friends afterwards, have a drink and learn something. They can come away with certification a lot of the times. I think that's a marvellous thing. It's bypassing trade shows, isn't it?
And again, which is something that the UAE in particular is really suffering from at the moment. There aren't many companies these days that still want to throw a large amount of money behind a local trade show when they could invest the same amount of money in their own individual event, steal all of the attention of the guests, not have to worry about the competitors. Saying that, the Middle East is one of those territories where everything hubs through UAE, so you can do one event and knock off half of the entire area. Can't do that quite so much in Asia. I do worry, particularly in the Middle East, about the few remaining trade shows that we have on the calendar and what happens there when they inevitably do disappear off the map and what that really means for the region. Of course, people can jump on a slightly longer flight and do those big shows that we all go to, ISE, NAM, and see the same kind of thing, but they won't be having the same kinds of conversations. No. They won't be meeting the same people.
Does the Middle East, I mean, I'm sure they invite international visitors anyway, but do they need to promote some sort of global trade show that takes place in the Middle East region?
It's a great idea, but easier said than done.
Taking a sort of flight across a bit, this year was the first Infocom SEA, which I know you were sort of involved with, Richard. How was that?
It's interesting because they took a 9-year break. The last time they had a show, it was in Hong Kong. It wasn't too successful. I think Hong Kong and Singapore can sometimes be the kiss of death. They're not great cities to host regional exhibitions on account. Obviously Hong Kong, Singapore, great ports, great for hotels, get in and out, but the cost is usually higher than the surrounding areas they represent. So Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, the visitors from those countries do struggle with the budgets. It's comfortably out of their reach sometimes. So having a show in Thailand is a little bit more cost effective. It's a good regional hub, but we all went there sceptical. I'll eat my hat. They pulled it off, and really, Avixa, hats off to them. They're very good at this sort of thing. They do the homework. They dug deep. They found the right specifiers, from military to healthcare and the usual traditional ones like rental companies, for example, and hospitality. And they came from quite a wide section of countries, right down to Australia and up to Japan. I was pleasantly shocked. So I think there was a little bit of gravitas with that show this year because ISE coincided with Chinese New Year. So a lot of the Asians couldn't go to or didn't want to go to Amsterdam in February when it's freezing and they could be at home with the families, and I can't really blame them. So that was the default show from this year. I hope it carries on where it left off. I really do. It's a little bit of education platform there. Good blend of companies. It was mainly digital signage. I'd like to see a few more audio, a few more video companies there this year. But, it's busy. It's rocking. Well done to them. It's that could be the viable show in Asia Pacific now.
So speaking to those audio and video companies you want to see more of, I mean, why do you think they should invest their time and money into exhibiting there?
Good question. I think you have to be seen, though. I think visibility and network is still important. I think you see this with IBC compared to, say, Cabsat in Middle East. You see this with Broadcast Station compared to NAB, whereby the main broadcasters will go to Las Vegas and Amsterdam and source equipment. I think the more techies, the more down-to-earth engineers don't get that chance, and they need to go. They need to be informed, kept up to date, and see what's new in the market, because at the end of the day, they're going to specify equipment for a job. And I think Bangkok has its place for that. I was a bit disappointed that quite a few big companies didn't go this year. Some really sort of made a presence felt. I mean, Shaw went, for example. They had a big presence to promote the conference and boardroom solutions. Sennheiser didn't. They were probably more cautious and went to put their money on Broadcast Asia instead.
So the show takes place in May, doesn't it, in Bangkok? Is that
Late
correct?
May, yeah.
So obviously the 2020 edition, do you see growth for it?
Well, the organisers factored in a 30% growth, and I think I said to them at the time, I said that's too low. I think you could do 50 to 100, but maybe I'm too capitalist in the way I look at things. I think they could do more. But they're probably playing on cautious. If you're going to grow the show 100%, you've got to grow the attendance 100%. The education platform's key for them, though. They have to continue to work at that and continue to find viable users. As I say, I was astounded at the amount of people from healthcare and visitors from military organisations who were specifying command centres. We came from rock and roll and studios, and now we're in command centres and operating theatres.
That's the other kind of string to the bow of these trade shows. Is there really an AV trade show anymore, or should it be more these specific niches? Things have diversified so much.
Yeah.
So AV not as an industry of its own anymore, but just a part of everything.
I guess it's just become such an all-encompassing word that it breaks back down into its individual components again, and those individual components used to be a loudspeaker, a microphone, a lighting system, and the individual components now are the solution for the fitness room, the solution for the meeting room, and it's just a different way of thinking.
We do the press releases, we got all the products through here, and we know the trend. Everything's so dumbed down now. Back in the analogue days of the 80s and the 90s, it was, the tech was quite hard to get your head around at times. Now it's made so simple to use for the end user, so simple to install for the integrator.
But obviously, I think that kind of demonstrates as well in terms of trade shows. I mean, obviously, arguably one of the biggest ones is ISE in Amsterdam in February. I mean, it's gotten so big now that this February coming 2020 is going to be the last one in Amsterdam because they've outgrown the ride. I mean, what are our sort of predictions for that going forward? I mean, what's it going to be like in 2021 moving to Barcelona?
Well, I was in Barcelona luckily last week and I saw the fairgrounds, and I must say it was lovely to see blue sky and feel the sun and then enjoy some tapas and some wonderful local vinos afterwards. So we've got that part to look forward to, but I think this purpose-built exhibition centre will really tick a lot of boxes. The hotels are great. I think it'll be a little bit cheaper than Amsterdam. No disrespect to Amsterdam, they've done a great job, but you know what? Do you want to visit companies stuck out in a car park in that freezing cold weather? They've done a great job to sort of try and expand ISC, but they've taken it to its limits now. You know, and as soon as you start adding drones and other facets to the show, it's so there's too many. I don't know what's the word I'm getting.
Too many integrated systems.
Too many integrated systems is correct, James. Thank you for helping me out there.
But obviously another trade show on the calendar that was always traditionally, I guess, quite a big one, maybe not so now, is Pro Light and Sound in Frankfurt.
They killed it, didn't they? I went into Music Messe itself where all the musical instruments were congregated. I think they put it in hall 3 and it was, I felt like crying almost. It's just, it's the death of a trade show. That hall was hall 9, 10, 11. I remember the drum hall alone would give you a headache going near it. There were all these drummers playing their percussion instruments, the guitar hall. Now everything was assembled in one flimsy. All the brands left very quickly. I don't know what they did, but they lost the buyers, then they lost the exhibitors, and amen. I do feel sorry for them at the same time, in the sense that the MI industry has had the carpet pulled from under its feet. If you're a music store owner, you see these punters come in, they'll tinkle with a piano or pick up a guitar, take a picture of it, then they're on Amazon about half an hour later buying it 20% cheaper. And this mirrors Frankfurt, because those same music buyers who were doing okay 10 years ago even, they've lost out to the online model and they're not visiting the show anymore, or they've gone out of business.
And is there a way to bring new life into it? I mean, could they repurpose themselves? Do they become a regional show? Do they become something a bit more niche perhaps? Or, I mean, is there a way to breathe new life into it?
One thing that has always fascinated me about Pro Light and Sound is that it's a show of two halves entirety on the pro side. So you talk to the guys in the audio halls and they are not positive in recent years about what's going on. You go and speak to the guys in the lighting halls and they absolutely love Pro Light and Sound. So why is that? Maybe just because musicians, Music Messe, that whole part just doesn't even enter their sphere of consciousness to begin with. But it works. So clearly there is something that they could build on at Pro Light and Sound if they worked on it. I mean, they've got competition from Plaza coming back up in the last couple of years, but there's no real big lighting show that covers the whole of Europe like there are LGI in America, other ones. So there's scope for that.
So what you're proposing is Pro Light, no sound?
If it was me, I'd place the emphasis on lighting and follow up with the audio stuff.
It was sleekly organised, the halls are great, it's easy to get to for everybody. Frankfurt's a major hub, but I don't know. It's not done well the last few years, and I don't think the organisers have done a good job at keeping the exhibitors happy. I've heard so many different reports over the years I think they've almost gone out of their way to upset exhibitors in many cases.
Yeah, a new initiative every year. The one comment that all exhibitors made to me the last time I was there a few years ago was that they were seeing mainly German attendees. In which case, why would you want to fly half of your staff over there, spend a whole load of money on a booth to cater to a local market that you could do with a local tour, roadshow, or something like that at much less expense. So maybe it should be.
It makes me worry. D&B Audio Technique have always traditionally done product launches at the Frankfurt show because their head base near Stuttgart is only an hour and a half away. And they usually have their regional distributor conference to go with it, and it brings a big pull. This last year was a bit of a significant change because they did the big KSL launch at the NAB show.
And everything you just said about Pro Light and Sound and the musician side of things, NAM has exactly the same conundrum on its hands, but it seems to have negotiated it a bit differently.
And sunshine.
Yeah, it definitely has that on its side. But NAM, I mean, the last couple of years at NAM have been great, haven't they? to be honest.
Yeah, they've got a good management team in place there, well organised, new halls, got a buzz. And then, you know, it is a case of build it and they will come. You can't rest back and just build a new hall, market it and hope for things to happen. They actually got a lot of new visitors in. Unfortunately, the hotel rates mirror that as well with the supply and demand. But they brought in 20,000 new people and they're all good buyers.
I just wanted to ask you, Richard. I mean, obviously it's end of a decade as well. You know, we're going into the 2020s now. So it's the end of the, I guess, second decade of this company, Pro AVL Central, Blank Canvas Publishing, whatever you want to call it. How's the decade been for you?
This has been our home now for most of those 10 years, and it fits like we fit in here like a well-worn suit, don't we?
You're referring to the building.
I'm referring to the building, yes, not the personnel. And this is home. We enjoy the ambience here and the work, but the decade's gone bloody quickly. I mean, I'm talking from an age point of view now, where every year does, as you get older, it goes a little bit quicker. It's been a fantastic 10 years.
I mean, did you ever think that we'd have completely changed the name of our magazine and the types of sections that we'd have covered if we went back?
Well, we just started doing newsletters 10 years ago. We just started with Facebook 10 years ago. We were dabbling. We've always had a website, but we started doing some more exciting things, and we went on to do Pass, gearing up the newsletters. We changed the worship title to Worship AVL, as you correctly said. We've done a few things that weren't so clever, but you've got to try these things. But now we've got a really good team. Yourselves, obviously, at the heart of that great team. Here we are doing a podcast. I didn't see that 10 years ago. We've got a full-time video editor and a video team. And it's taken on new dimensions all the time, because if you don't, it's how we consume media. We're not a magazine company. We haven't been a magazine company for a while. Magazines is just part of what we do. We're very lucky that we're seen as a conduit for information for anyone who needs it. We're only here because we must be doing a job still that keeps us in the minds of people. And thank you for anyone who's listening to us, viewing our videos, reading our magazines, or going online, because you've got a very powerful alternative in Google and all those other search engines which do a fairly good job. But we try and give it a humanistic outlook, and we'll continue to do that. But we're only as good as, you know, how our readership tells us how we should manoeuvre. So we're reliant on them, our critics, to shape us, hopefully for the next 10 years.
I mean, to wrap things up, I have one last question for each of you.
Thank you, James.
And I've stolen this. I mean, we've sprung this on people at trade shows and our videos. Richard, how would you describe 2019 in one word?
A little bit deja vu, believe it or not. Everything's still AV over IP dominated. The network has taken over. There's a lot of consolidation in the market. The venture capitalists are well embedded in the industry now, but it's still a people industry, luckily. And there's some fabulous people in this industry that gives it that sort of refreshing outlook for what we do. So in one word, rejuvenating.
Rejuvenating. What about you, Simon?
Good word.
You've had a bit more time to think about it now.
An extra 10 seconds. Awesome. No, it is hard to do in one word. I mean, I've been doing this position now and only working in this region for a little over 12 months. So just about everything that I've been doing this year and everyone who I've been meeting has been new. So to sum all of that up in one word, I can't do it. Can't do it. So just to annoy you, James, if you had to go one word to start the year, what would it be?
Should we go with acquiring?
Acquisitions, acquiring, yeah.
It's been an acquiring year. Everyone's acquiring everyone.
It is like Russian dolls, isn't it? We're going to go to a trade show one day. There'll be like one company left on the show floor. Anyway.
On that note, I think we'll call it a day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to anyone who's listening to this.
See you next year, everyone.
Thank you. See you next year.